今回もなんとかなりましたね。
7K Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're checking out Trude in PvP, also in Advanced PvP. But before that, we'll check out her utility in all the modes. She's great in Adventure and Nightmare Adventure as a potential tank, okay, and also a pseudo damage dealer. And in PvP, without a doubt, she is so OP, which we'll see later on. For Infinite Tower and Tower of Trials, I believe she will have very good use as well because she is also like a sub DPS. But for other PvE wise, not so much, and she's just a decent farmer at best. So for her skills, for her passive, she has this new effect called Pain Endurance. Basically, she'll only take 10% of whatever damage she's taking, and then she will split the other parts of the damage across 5 turns, which means it's kind of like a slow death effect if you think about it. And at T6, she is able to have 100% crit rate, which is super insane and really changes up her entire game and how you will actually gear her, and we'll look at that later as well. And not only that, she has block rate increase, which is crazy. For her skill 2, it's a damage dealing move whereby she increases her crit damage output, and if you transcend her to T2, she gets a barrier, and this barrier is actually very useful because it lets her soak up all the peripheral damage that she will take due to her Pain Endurance. Her skill 1 is also a damage dealing move only, and when enhanced, gives crowd control immunity, which means she can't be stunned, can't be petrified, can't be paralyzed, and all those stuff. So very good skill to enhance. In fact, all her skills are very good to enhance and should be enhanced before you actually start to use her. But nonetheless, later on we'll actually look at how she can perform without skill enhancement. And then for her basic attack, there's nothing much. But when enhanced, allows her to heal herself by 20% of her physical attack. So having higher physical attack is also pretty good for her, which leads us to a lot of questions about what you should be gearing her with. Personally, for me, I've been using the weakness set, weakness hit set, for players that do not have T6. Okay, mine is not T6, but ideally she will use the weakness hit set. If you're not using T6, okay, you can actually run the assassin set so that she has higher crit rate, and that would put her crit damage to better use, okay, because weakness hit set will come in later on if she has 100% crit, so not too important here. Now for the accessory, I've given her the new accessory that we got yesterday, and that is the one that applies a shield for her at the start of the battle. So this actually lets her take on, soak up some of the damage that she will be taking early on in the battles. Some of you may be thinking also, should she be using, block rate? Okay, so having block main stat is good enough. If you have block substats, even better, because ultimately she will have 60% block rate once you enhance everything. So having 40% block rate, overall for her kit is actually very decent, and she'll have 100% block rate along with 100% crit and very high weakness hit. So these are some stats you want to keep in mind. And then for speed wise, well, she's not really a speed unit because she is a universal unit after all, but depends on what team you're using her with. If you're using her in the offensive team, a physical team, then speed is going to be pretty important. Some players also use her on the Vanguard set, okay, because of her healing capabilities, and also for her because she's kind of like a tank if you think about it, so she can actually have highest attack and soak in the Carl damage. Attract Carl, taunt Carl to get the Eye of the Strong, and actually not take too much damage from his basic attacks as well. So that's one way to go about it. Another set that you can use is the Orchestrator set, but it's less important because ultimately she does have allies that cleanse, so you don't really need the Orchestrator set for her per se, and you can actually use her for other purposes such as damage dealing instead, or tankiness. Okay, so this is the team I'll be testing with her at T0. My Carl is actually on the Orchestrator set. My Elisha is on the Orchestrator set as well. For Colt, she's on the Vanguard set, so she has highest attack, and she will definitely be getting the Eye of the Strong from enemy Carls. Okay, here just doing a quick swap of accessories so that my Elisha will revive. And then for Kagura, she's on the Spellweaver set. But ultimately later on, I actually increased her speed, so I actually gave her a mixed set. Okay, and you can actually do that as well for Kagura. So these are gonna be the 4 matches or so with Trude at T0, just to see how she performs. So you may be wondering, how can Trude perform at T0? Because looking at her skill kit, she is very much a T6 unit, right? She should be a T6 so that you can make the most out of her skill set. But surprisingly, in this tier, maybe I'm still not too high up, okay, 5.4. T0 actually worked out pretty well, so I'm not going to remove any videos you see here, and you're just going to see all 4 complete battles that I've used her in T0. Of course, some of you will say that, firstly, the tier is too low, it's not a good gauge. That is true, and then you have another factor that is the enemies may not be using Trude, the enemies may still be using, subpar offensive teams, so it's not a good gauge as well. Again, that is true, but depending on where you are in PvP, because firstly, if you don't even have a Trude, then you'll probably look like my enemies, right? So having even a T0 Trude is allowing you to get somewhere to begin with, to even progress in PvP at the moment. Because without a Trude, it's gonna be very hard and you'll be facing a lot of enemy Trudes instead that actually outlive you. In fact, she seems to counter Juri and Fai pretty well. And why do I say that is because in terms of Juri usually is there for soul death. But the thing is for Trude, the fact that she lives for so long, she outlives the soul death debuff, right? So you technically, even landing soul death on her is pretty useless. And not only that, I mean her allies do cleanse as well, right? So yeah, it kind of makes Juri lose her purpose in that sense. And in terms of Fai, some people actually use Trude in the front line. And if you're using Trude in the front line and Fai just targets Trude can't really be executed as well because Trude just can't die because she has that damage cap whereby she only takes 10% of the damage overall. So if that's the case, then Fai is also counted in that sense. So again, having a unit here to counter 2-7 Knights of Old is a pretty big thing, to be honest. My skill queue tends to focus on Elisha because my speed I won't say is the highest, so I definitely will have to queue an Elisha skill to make sure that I do get a cleanse in within the first 2 turns. Okay, and then Carl will actually do his big attack. I also actually do queue Trude's attacks for the showcase purpose, but I did ultimately continue with that later on, even after recording this showcase, because I felt that Trude will be very useful if she gets a barrier up early, whereby she gets that barrier and then she will actually be soaking up that peripheral damage that you see is being dealt to her. Sometimes you will see that Trude actually takes a huge ton of damage all of a sudden out of nowhere, and that's because she has accumulated so much damage, through her pain endurance. So it's kind of like a slow death effect in that sense, or rather I would say delayed death, right? So you can have a Trude at full HP and then your enemies are just hitting her a lot, but because she doesn't take the damage until a lot later, she can, if she still has skills available, she has the potential to actually counter back and kill off all the enemies while they will not be able to do anything, So yeah, I think that's the concept for her. Basically to soak in a huge ton of damage and try to kill the enemy off before she actually takes the hit, or rather takes in all the damage at once. I think my matchups have been pretty smooth, pretty lucky to be honest. We don't really get many Trudes in lower tier. Take note that this is still a T0 non-skill enhanced Trude, and so far I've been winning all my battles. So very, very decent and promising to see that, later on when we will be actually transcending her and enhancing her skills, how much better is she gonna fare? So I've gotten 4 streaks from this. We're gonna make her T2 right now, and then with T2 I will get the extra billion enhancement stone, which I will then use to enhance all her skills because I was waiting on that to actually enhance all her skills. So now with a fully skill enhanced Trude at T2, whereby she is able to get her barrier when she uses the top skill, we'll see how that actually fares. You see that the ring that I've given her actually already gives her some barrier, so whenever she takes damage at the start of the battle, the barrier will actually help to soak that up. Now I don't think it stacks with the accessory, okay, unfortunately. So ideally, if you do use that ring, maybe you will want to use her barrier skill a little later, or use her bottom skill first to get the crowd control immunity instead, so that she's able to, not be immobilized, and then she'll use her barrier later once the accessory effect has worn off. So again, this is a pretty lucky opening match because I did manage to silence all the enemies, and then everyone on my team just went bonkers. Also, this is not the most common matchup, I would say. We have Vanessa, which is very rare now in PvP, but if I didn't silence the enemy team here, earlier on, the Vanessa existing could have, caused them to do a lot of damage to me. And on that note, I think that could be one of the things I want to talk about, and that is counters to Trude. I think Trude having such a powerful passive whereby she also revives with full HP is easily countered. I won't say easily, but can be countered by fixed damage. So Platine is actually a very good counter to Trude. I've seen Platine comms just doing all that fixed damage back to me, and it just bypasses her damage cap in that sense, so it cripples her very, very quickly. And I've also seen Juris who cast Soul Death at the best timing possible, whereby they cast Soul Death and right immediately after that she procs she takes the damage from the Pain Endurance and she just dies. So, but it's very, very rare, to be honest, because it's very difficult to time Juri's skill. But yeah, that's just one of the things. Elisha does have fixed damage as well, so that's also one thing. One thing I would say is good is the silence. One thing Trude really needs is the barrier, I would say, because if without the barrier, she can soak up a lot of damage very, very quickly, and then she can go down very, very quickly as well. So having the barrier really helps. So in that case, if you do manage to immobilize her before she gets a crowd control immunity up, then you may have a good shot at letting her take in so much damage that she doesn't have the barrier to soak up that amount, and that will just eat away at her HP itself. So on the topic of big damage, I would say that with Trude, it seems that it opens doors to even more power creep units in terms of damage output in PvP, because with heroes like Trude, the only way you can kill her is to do huge tons of damage each turn, such that she takes in so much damage later on at once with a Pain Endurance that it almost seems like nothing. Like in this case, as you can see, my Trude is already down to 1 HP. So it's not that Trude is super tanky. She is, but imagine you have a lot of units that actually do a lot of big damage, right? Trude in future moving forward will not be able to tank all that, because she will just take a huge chunk of damage later on and in terms of her HP, and then she will be brought down to a very low amount. Speaking of which, I also did met a Platine that did cast buff HP alteration on my Trude, and that's also a very good counter to Trude. So Platine is really kind of the counter to Trude in that sense. But not many people are using Platine. Some people do use Platine with the offensive team with Trude, so that is going to be something that you want to think about, and I'll probably make a video for that in future once my Platine is built up. Now we'll be transcending Trude to T6, and then also giving her the weakness gear. As you can see, I have 100% weakness hit chance, and then I also have a pretty decent crit damage amount, and then also with 100% crit rate with her from her passive at T6. So I think this is gonna be a very strong showcase. Later on, we'll also showcase her in Advanced Arena and see how she performs there. So far my runs have been very, very successful, and as you can see here, once we have pushed a little further into PvP, we do see more Trude as enemies also, so it will be a good talking point from here, having Trudes on the enemy team as well, and see how they perform against my Trude. Okay, as you can see, my Trude does huge amounts of damage, crits and weakness hits all coming through. It will also seem that other teams and other units in the team will look very bad in comparison to Trude because she's surviving so well and doing so much damage, whereas Carl is basically like a glass cannon and falling away so easily, whereas Trude, you know, is doing very well. So yeah, I mean, the game is just pushing units to another level. You know, future units will all be getting this power creep in that sense. So here, my Alicia and Trude are remaining. You can see that his Trude took 3.5k damage and just died and proc his revive. Yeah, and she died to the pain endurance. So it's really like a delayed death in that sense, right? She's just not taking the damage instantly, but it's just pushing it across various turns. And then once it comes down to a very low amount of HP, she will just die from that final pain point. So many people in PvP now tend to start their skills, or rather their skill queue with a damage dealing move because of Alicia. With Alicia, not many people are going to use CC moves first because they'll only get cleansed. Because of the enemy Alicia having a skill to cleanse anyway, so many people start off with a huge damage dealing move, be it from Carl or be it from Trude. Okay, if you're using Trude first, then I think either skill is good for her, and then Carl definitely will benefit from landing one of the first hits because ultimately you do want more damage to be dealt. In that case, if your Carl is using his skill first, you know, at the start of the battle, maybe he won't need the orchestrator set because orchestrator sets are really meant for players who are using Carls and not going first. So it really depends on your speed as well. Okay, if you're using a team with high speed, then maybe your Carl can kill his skill first and land some big damage or remove certain damage immunities, and then your Trude can later go in to deal the extra damage needed. Here we have a 5v1 versus one enemy Trude. We will see that this will be a very common sight moving forward, that you will have Trude versus Trude a lot. So we're moving into Advanced Arena now. Let's see how Trude fares in this particular mode. Take note that I'm actually running on a slow speed build, right? So I'm actually going second most of the time here, which may not be the best thing. Okay, so it really depends on how you are setting up your gears, but hopefully this gives players with lower speed some hope that it is still workable. Okay, although not the best, but it is definitely still workable, especially with Trude, because she doesn't die instantly, so there's a chance for you to actually make a comeback after that. So as you can see, the damage output is not the same as what we saw earlier. I mean, of course, players in the Advanced Arena are definitely a lot stronger, I feel. And here my Trude actually went down pretty fast. So unfortunately, I do get petrified. This guy is using Kagura at the back, which is pretty unique, but understandable because he wants to protect his Kagura from the Indomitable being shredded away too quickly. But because my Trude is on a weakness hit, she will always single target the Kagura without fail. It can be good or bad, right? Because single targeting a Kagura is not going to do much other than just bringing down one shield. But given Trude's damage capabilities, she has the potential to just kill off one unit with her basic attack. that is something to consider. And as you can see here, it's Trude v Trude. It really depends now on how much pain endurance damage that which Trude is taking. So of course the one taking more damage from the pain endurance is gonna die earlier, and that is basically the win con. So again, it goes back to dealing heavy damage on Trude such that she takes so much damage from the pain endurance and thereby killing her in that particular way. So here there are more T6 Trudes. A lot of status effects happening, and my team is fully, immobilized in a way. I can't use skills. Thank goodness the Amelia didn't land concussion, because that would be so crazy. My Trude is about to fight back very soon. Yep, so the damage from Trude is very good. Damage from his Trude is also very good. So I think his Trude has revived a while earlier. I'm not too sure about my Trude, but his Trude does have sleep, which is wow. Having a status effect on Trude is actually pretty interesting because, yeah, unfortunately he died to the pain endurance. But as I was saying, having a status effect land on Trude in these situations is going to be very interesting, because if you can potentially immobilize the enemy Trude and you just hit, all the way till that Trude dies, then you basically won. I've even met a Trude that lands freeze on me, and when the freeze breaks, the damage output dealt by the freeze is actually very crippling. So I actually see a lot of potential in freeze now, because freeze actually makes sense, I would say now. So Spike's comeback along with Gelidus potentially is going to be very interesting, because the reason why freeze wasn't that great was because, if you break the freeze, then the enemy still could move and as if nothing happened. But if the freeze is so good in terms of dealing good enough damage to cripple enemy HP well enough, then there's actually a chance that it's actually going to be useful. Because since regular damage isn't going to kill heroes like Trude that easily, you really have to rely on status effects that deal peripheral damage or damage over time. So I would think that freeze is going to be a very good mechanic to deal with Trude in terms of doing additional damage outside of a regular HP damage cap, so that you can kill Trude easier. So I hope this video gives you some ideas on how you can run Trude, and also the analysis helps to, share new ideas about Trude to you. So if you found this video helpful, do give a like and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much and see you!